we go.
It's up to you, sir.
Good evening. Call the meeting to order. Meeting of the Carver Board of Selectmen, Tuesday, April 16th, 6 o'clock p.m. This meeting is being cablecast by Area 58 Community Access Media, Channel 15. There are openings on several committees. Please refer to the Board of Selectmen page on our website for a listing and application. Please stand for our Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Robertson, would you mind doing our prayer today?
Oh, I do not mind. Almighty God, humbly we pray your blessings as we concern our life with the opportunity to serve our community. Enhance us with your spirit of dignity and selflessness. May we become instruments of support and understanding as we seek to bring an environment of trust and purpose among those who provide the many services that make us all that we can become. Help us achieve the goals of our commitment in this office that is now our responsibility. And especially, we lift our prayers for all the citizens of our community that we have been allowed to serve, that they may discover the fullness and joy of life that we all seek, and keep those serving in our armed forces and our first responders in our hearts and our thoughts. Amen.
Amen. I will hold off the citizen participation since I did note it that showing up at 7 o'clock, so just in case there were citizens anticipating speaking tonight, I'll reserve that for 7 o'clock. Okay, so this meeting at 6 o'clock was called to ask our town council, Greg Corbo from the firm of Copeland and Page, to discuss a memo related to Article 97 and its applicability to the playground. Ms. Hewins had come across an update from Copeland and Page that spoke to Article 97, and it raised some question as to whether or not there was an applicability of Article 97 to the playground. And so I had asked Mr. Corbo to look into it, and so he's here tonight to, and he sent us an opinion, which we shared with the rest of the board, and he's here this evening to discuss it. So I think probably, just in case there are folks that aren't familiar with what the issue is, if you want to sort of just do a background of Article 97 and then bring us up to date as to where we stand now.
Yes. Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair, to members of the board and the public. The issue referenced by the chair, Article 97, is an amendment to the Massachusetts Constitution that protects certain properties in public use and requires legislative approval before those properties can be put to a different use. And so what Article 97 says is that the legislature has declared a public purpose of protecting the conservation, development, and utilization of agricultural, mineral, forest, water, air, and other natural resources of the Commonwealth by requiring that land and easements taken for such purposes shall not be used for another purpose except by laws enacted by a 2/3 vote of both houses of the legislature. So, if property is determined to be subject to Article 97 of the Massachusetts Constitution, it cannot be, the town cannot dispose of its interest or use that property for another purpose unless it complies with certain procedural requirements. One of those is that the transaction be approved by a 2/3 vote of both houses of the state legislature. In addition to that, the state legislature requires that the transaction be approved and supported by the Executive Office of Environmental Affairs, who in turn would require that you designate another portion of property of equal or greater environmental value to replace the land that's being lost as a result of the transaction. So I think it was in 2017 or 18, the Supreme Judicial Court considered the application of Article 97 in conjunction with a playground used by the city of Westfield, Massachusetts. And there is not a lot of case law interpreting Article 97, but there has been in the past decade or so a series of decisions by the Supreme Judicial Court in which they've attempted to identify how property can become subject to Article 97. And so the sort of the running theme throughout these cases is that merely using a property for a purpose protected by Article 97 is not necessarily enough to make the procedural requirements of the amendment apply. But rather, there has to be some more permanent dedication of the land for that purpose. So in the first case in which this arose in the town of Hanson, the court found that in the absence of something in the deed by which the town accepted the property, or a specific restriction recorded in the registry that the property would only be used for that purpose, that in the absence of some permanent formal restriction, Article 97 would not apply. Subsequent to that, there was a case involving the city of Boston, and there was certain land in a redevelopment plan dedicated to open space, and the court found that that dedication, because it was not done in any formal permanent way and was really just part of a larger economic development plan, also did not trigger Article 97. The third case in the line was this Westfield case, and in that case, the city had used property for a municipal playground for decades. And during the course of that time, the property was formally transferred to the Recreation Commission to have custody and control of that property. And significantly, the city accepted a grant of federal funds, and as a condition of that grant, the city was required to maintain the property as a playground in perpetuity unless there was certain approvals from the federal government. And so what the court in the Westfield case found was that the rule set forth in the earlier Hanson case was a bit too restrictive, that yes, a formal deed or a formal restriction recorded at the registry is one way to dedicate land to an Article 97 purpose, but not the only way. And what the court found in the Westfield case was that this acceptance of federal grant funds and essentially a contractual undertaking to maintain this land as a park in perpetuity was sufficient to trigger the requirements of Article 97. So sort of with all that being said, a question has arisen as to whether the town of Carver can build a police station on property that is currently being used as a playground. And so, we look to these prior cases for guidance, but each case involving Article 97 and whether or not it applies really has to be addressed on a case-by-case basis based on the specific facts and circumstances applicable to that case. And there's not a bright line test here, that you say, 1 + 1 = 2. There are, if you change one variable one way, it may have an effect on the outcome. And certainly this is an area in which, even the court has been struggling to define what exactly the parameters of Article 97 are. So before I get into the specifics of my opinion on this project, are there any questions about what Article 97 is or what the procedures would be if it applied? Okay. So, what I did was I looked at, the history of the playground here in town. And, what I found was that when the town acquired this property, it was not acquired with a restriction that it be used for playground purposes. It was, in my opinion, acquired for broad public purposes. It specifically mentioned a library, recreational uses, or other public buildings. So, the first step was, okay, let's look at the town meeting vote that authorized you to acquire this land? And did it require that the land be acquired for playground purposes? And in my opinion, town meeting did not place such a restriction on your acquisition. So then I looked at the deed to the property, and that had no restrictions in it at all. So it became clear to me that this property was not acquired for playground purposes. So then I looked at, okay, well, how did the playground come about? And there were a series of town meeting votes that led to the creation of the playground. None of those votes mentioned a specific location, and the funds used were general municipal funds, and there were no strings attached to the use of those funds. So the playground was built, and at the same time that the playground was being built, you know, the town was looking at this area as a, you know, municipal campus. And playground was not the only use that particular property was looked at for. And in fact, early plans showed a police station on that particular part of the property. But notwithstanding that plan, the town did go ahead and the town put a playground on that property and has used and maintained that playground ever since. However, unlike the Westfield case, I'm not aware of any restriction that would require the town to use that land as a playground in perpetuity or for any length of time. Control of the property has never been transferred away from the Board of Selectmen, as far as I know. At times in the past, Community Preservation Act funds were used to improve the playground. However, it's my understanding that, you know, the equipment used, the equipment that was purchased with CPA funds is intended to be transferred over to the other, the new playground that may be built. So, you know, the intent of the use of CPA funds, in my opinion, it would be carried through by such a transaction. So, you know, based on the totality of the circumstances that I've been made aware of, it's my opinion that Article 97 would not apply, and therefore the town would not have to go to the state legislature to get approval to site a police station on the property that is currently used as a playground.
Before going to questions, I just wanted to add one additional piece, is that since we became aware of Article 97 and got the opinion from Mr. Corbo, we have received a letter from Attorney Adam Bond of Middleborough, I guess representing a group of 10 Carver citizens, if I understand it correctly, that has threatened litigation if town meeting moves forward and votes to have the police station located where the playground is now. So just as an added piece of information, people should be aware of that. So with that, questions from the board from Mr. Corbo?
Hi, Greg. Thank you for being here.
Sure.
I just wanted to clarify a few things and maybe add a few things that you may not be aware of.
Okay.
First of all, I'm not a lawyer, so I'm not going to get into that with you. But I do want to point out that in one of the cases you mentioned, they did use the word "or." And in the particular deed in which we first acquired this land, 1994, it references another deed that shows the whole property, the meets and bounds, and it uses the word "and." So it was library and recreational facilities and other buildings instead of "or." So, I mean, in my opinion, it seems to me that there are three very specific uses for which it was acquired. And I'm not sure the question is, was playground the only use that could be allowed there? I don't think that's, in my mind anyway, that's not an issue. It's that if you got rid of one of those uses, that would be one of my questions.
Excuse me, Sarah. Pardon the interruption, but Mr. Chairman, I'd like to get a ruling from Town Council, please. I have concern that there could be at least the appearance of conflict of interest.
I've already filed the form, the 23B3.
I don't see where that really affected the 97 or the possible litigation?
I've filed an appearance of a conflict of interest form, Mr. Corbo, as both the selectman and the chair of the playground committee, and that will satisfy any appearance of a conflict of interest. I've been told by Ethics Commission to do that, and that's what I've done.
Mr. Corbo, are you familiar with her statement of possible conflict of interest?
I have not seen the disclosure. This is obviously a sensitive subject, but is there is Ms. Hewens one of the 10 residents who has threatened
We
suit
have no
against the
idea.
town?
That hasn't been named to us.
The form, well, actually, the form that was submitted to the selectman's office, because the selectman appointed me to the playground committee, does address that. And the form that I submitted to the town clerk's office, because I'm an elected official, addresses that as well. And what I explained in it, as directed by the Ethics Commission, is that I am a part of that group, but I am not involved in a lawsuit. Now, next year, next week, I am a part of that group. And as such, I'm not allowed to do things like be involved in a lawsuit, among other things. I can't use my town time, my town title, or town resources. So that's spelled out pretty well. If you just would prefer I didn't talk, that
No,
might be
no.
best said.
Would it help? I have a copy of the disclosure. Would you like to review it, or does it make
Well,
any
I mean, I
difference?
guess with all due respect to everybody who's sitting here, issues of conflict of interest are personal to the individual, and even I don't have the ability to say, you cannot participate. So certainly if somebody is participating in a matter for which they would be prohibited under the conflict of interest law, they certainly do so at their own risk. But it really is up to them to decide whether they wish to participate in a particular matter.
Okay, thank you. I was just looking for a ruling from you and an opinion, and I appreciate that. And Ms. Hewens, carry on. Thank you.
So I just wanted to point out a couple of other things, because you have been given the information that much of the equipment from the existing playground will be moved to the new one. And I wanted to give you a copy of this, if you could pass this to Mr. Corbo. It's a memo from the company. I believe the woman's name is Nancy White. She does playground inspections, but she's very clear in there that she's not doing a playground inspection. She was just asked to eyeball the site and give it a grade. So she gave the equipment a grade of good, but she's very clear when she says that if it's moved, it gets a grade of fair, and she does not recommend the use of town funds for doing that, which I thought was very honest of her. So I wanted
And
that.
excuse me, who was the woman that you identified?
I'm pretty sure her name is Nancy White. She used to work for O'Brien and Son that sold us the equipment originally. She now runs a company. Greg, what's the name there that she's under?
Is it, some of the
I
thing is
understand.
cut off, but it says, is it Playground Inspections of New England LLC?
That's it. Yep. Thank you. And so there were a couple of things that you mentioned in the letter. You talked about the area being used temporarily until a better use had emerged or ripened. And I have to say that talking about our community park over there as a placeholder for over 18 years, to me, really is stretching kind of believability. I mean, it was acquired. That was one of the uses it was acquired for, that land. We used public funds twice. We used $125,000 of public funds. We've had public donations. We've had businesses donate over there. And then in 2014, we went to town meeting and used CPA funds. And so I think also I should point out that it was actually dedicated twice. I don't know the legal term of the word dedication, but I'd like for you to see this document too. This is from 2001, when we had our grand opening. And in 2015, when we had a rededication, there were at least two of us selectmen who are sitting here now were at that rededication. I have lots of pictures on my camera, but I can print them out for you at a later date if you'd like to see them. And the other thing that you mentioned in the case was that the town, I mean, these are just things that I just felt that you should know, just to add to your file there. You know, they argued that the townspeople had been using it as that for so many years. And the townspeople had been using it as a park for over 18 years. There's no question. And I think that to me, it just strains credulity to think that the town would use public funds, especially CPA funds, for something that's temporary. Who would use CPA funds for something temporary? And then the other point that you made was that the town has always intended for a police station to go there. I'm not sure you're aware of some of these documents, but going back as far as 2010, there was a document called Public Safety Facilities Study, and that was done by Reinhardt Associates. It's actually on the town website under the Police Station Building Committee. They're part of the website. And in there, they don't actually say the address, but in their line item budget, proposed budget for the station they designed that year, it has a line item of X amount of dollars for demolishing the current fire station, or the old fire station as we call it now, here at 112 Main Street. So, and all the pictures that they show in the study, it's very clearly right there. So that's 2000, all the way back as far as 2010. Then in 2013, we had a special town meeting. I'm sure you were probably there. The topic was purely the fire station. But what happened was the police station got talked about as well, because the town had at that point hired the Collins Center for Public Management out of UMass Boston. I believe we paid them about a little over $9,000 to do a study of siting both the fire station and the police station. And it's on our cable channel, it's on YouTube, it's out there in the public. This was a public town meeting where people stood up from the Collins Center, as well as actually the fire chief, and talked about the current Board of Selectmen at the time, which happened to include two of us that are here, the Capital Outlay Committee, the police chief, and the fire chief, all agreed with this report, that it was the right thing to do. Fire station at 99 Main Street, police station at 112 Main Street, and that's what people voted on, that background, that understanding.
Excuse me, are you saying that last year, when we voted for the police station, people expected it to be located where the current station
I
is?
think so, Ron. I can't.
I'm going to disagree with you right now.
Neither one of us.
It was specifically said there was no site in mind. That's what the committee's work would be.
Okay, Ron, I'm not here to argue. I'm trying to talk to Greg about this.
You're making a statement of fact that I have to dispute.
No, I'm saying that people took a vote there, having just heard the Collins Center for Public Management
Wait a minute.
discuss the siting.
2013 was the Collins Center.
Correct.
2018 was last year. That's
Okay.
5 years in between.
I'm actually trying to give Greg some background
Well,
information.
It has to be accurate.
It is accurate, Ron. Can you?
You just got through saying that people voted last year for the police station thinking it was going to be located where the current station is.
I don't know what people were thinking, Ron, but.
You just said you did.
No, I said that I believe they were. I can't tell what people are thinking any more than you can.
Mr. Chairman,
And
also
last-
back in 2010, with the vote for the fire station.
The fire
yes,
station was 2013.
Pardon me, I stand corrected, 2013. Article 13, November, special town meeting. Yes, the Collins Center gave a report of everything they've been doing, financial, which is what one of their main thrusts was. Nobody has done, even the Collins report has no drawn-up specifications, no architectural drawings.
Well, you
And also, there's nothing in that article that says anything about police or Collins Center. It was strictly Article 13, which stated, will the town vote to go ahead and borrow $8,750,000 for the purpose of building a fire station with funds to be expended by and going off into there, with absolutely no mention of a police station, absolutely no mention of anything else. So I think to try to go ahead and say, well, that's what they were thinking of, with all due respect, You just admitted it. You don't know what they were thinking. I don't know what they were thinking, but I think it's a bit of a stretch.
All right, let's get back on track.
Yes,
Continue,
thank you.
please.
I just want to make a point here that at the 2013 special town meeting, that was the topic. That was the entire town meeting. It didn't last but an hour and a half or so. And most of the discussion was about the location of the fire station and the police station. And they spent a great deal of time talking, actually. Her name was Marcia Lamboy, the woman from the Collins Center, discussing why the Center Street site was a bad site for a police station. Because
Excuse me, Sarah, how does this apply to Article 97? Because that's what we're actually discussing here.
Mr. Corbo is here, having given us an opinion, I believe without all the information that he needs, and I'm almost finished. So, having said that, this is what people heard at town meeting. And that's what the Collins Center talked about. They talked about this site, and they talked about Center Street site, and how that was not a good site. And then in 2017, our town's comprehensive master plan was completed, and our regional planning agency helped us right there. And in that plan, page 52, is the site for the police station at 112 Main Street. So my point here, it's a long way of saying it, but I believe it needed to be said because I'd like for you to be, if you can, if you want to, be able to look at those documents. To say that the town always planned it at Center Street is kind of a reach, I think, because as early as 2010 and as recently as 2017, it's been talked about being sited at 112 Main Street. So I don't think that that's, I just think that maybe you didn't have all the information. That's all I'm trying to say. Thank you.
And Mr. Corbo, if I could, I thought what I heard you say was that as early as 2001, there were plans that indicated the police station could go there. I don't think I heard you say that that was always the intent to put the police station there. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Mr. Chairman, also, the fact that actually the first report I found, the first study was done actually by the police department in 2005. And through all the years, this keeps getting changed and updated. And what nobody seems to be recognizing is that the first real needs assessment was not done until we put in, paid for it, I believe it was either 2016 or 2017, to go ahead and get an OPM, and that, well, no, 16 was to have the needs assessment done. And then in 17, it was to get an architect and an OPM. Then 18 was the one we went ahead and voted. Nobody had ever bothered to talk to the police department and get the police chief's recommendation of where they wanted. There were plans out there for 2-story buildings, which the chief says does not, had told this committee, or the building committee, does not meet his needs. And also the Reinhout plans specifically stated that it would be a 2-story building over at behind 112 Main Street, which again, now we know is not satisfactory for the police department. So what I'm trying to get at is things change, plans change. You can't, I don't see how a plan from 2013 even, which wasn't an architectural plan, there were no architectural, pardon my lack of tongue working here, go ahead and show how it was going to set up. Now, since then, there's been all sorts of things on social media, cutting out, well, little pick here.
All right, well, if I could, I'd like to bring this back to Article 97,
Yes.
because that's what we're here for today.
I do have to correct the record, though, Alan. In 2010, there was a needs assessment. It says here, subtotal, special needs assessment. That was Reinhardt Associates. They're the same people that worked for the Collins Center in 2013. So I'm sorry, that's just incorrect information. And this is not a place to discuss people being, anti-police department or anything like that. This is not the issue. The issue is the use of that land.
Well, again, does anyone have any questions for Mr. Corbo relative to Article 97 from the board? Mark?
Two specific questions
I guess,
regarding...
Mr. Chair, if I could
I'm sorry,
respectfully,
yes.
Could I just respond to a couple of
Yes,
things that are
yeah,
up
please
before
do.
we layer more questions
That's
on top of it?
a very
Mr.
valid
Townsend,
point.
I apologize for interrupting.
Yeah.
So, this sort of back and forth, right, about what did the town intend is sort of the very reason why it's my opinion that Article 97 does not apply. Mr. Dunham, you said plans change, and that's true. And I am aware that over the course of years, consultants have looked at this area and have given opinions as to what the best location for new public safety facilities would be. And the area of the existing playground has always been in that mix throughout all of those assessments, even though it may not have always been identified as the ideal location. It was always there in the mix. And as Mr. Dunham said, plans change. And the way that I read the Article 97 cases is that in order for Article 97 to apply, you have to take clear and unequivocal steps to prevent plans from changing, so that you do something, and clear and unequivocal are the words that the court uses, action to prevent you from changing your plans. So in the Westfield case, it was the acceptance of grant money with a condition that you will never use the property for any other purpose but a playground. And that type of clear and unequivocal action, in my opinion, is not present in this case. It appears to me that the intent and use of this property has always been fluid. And yes, public funds were spent to put a playground there, but a playground was there for 20 years. And, some could argue that you got your money's worth out of that. And certainly it's not my place to argue that. But what I'm not seeing, again, is, like what the court in Hanson talked about, something in the deed, something in the acquisition of the property, a restriction recorded at the registry, a grant that says we'll never use this for any other purpose. And yes, I talked about the fact that the equipment used for CPA, purchased with CPA funds, might be transferred over. Well, that's a CPA question. And, a question may arise at some point in the future. Well, if you didn't get the full useful life out of that playground equipment, might you have to give some money from the general fund back over to the CPA? That's something that we would look at in the future, but it doesn't go to the Article 97 question. So again, to me, and I've been clear about this, that this is an evolving area of the law. I can't sit here today and tell you that I could guarantee any particular result if this were to go to court, but based on my experience in this, in practicing for more than 20 years at this point, and reading these cases, I don't see the same unequivocal intent to forever dedicate this land as a playground. And the fact that the five of you can't agree on what the intent was, in my opinion, supports that notion, because if it was clear and unequivocal, there would be nothing for you to argue about.
Mr. Townsend?
Thanks. I did have a question about the CPC, but I think you just answered it, so I appreciate that. But I also have a question, just so I'm clear, because a few people around town have brought this up to me. The fact that the town did create a municipal playground ad hoc committee who worked on the playground and subsequently located it where it is now, that in no way implies permanence, right? It not an Article 97 issue, the fact that the town created the playground committee and they located it over there?
I don't think so. Again, based on the few cases that have come out so far, it might be different if the property had been formally transferred by town meeting to a recreation commission or a playground committee to have care and custody of the property. But to my knowledge, that has not happened. The property does remain with the Board of Selectmen for the purposes in the original town meeting vote, which included other municipal buildings.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman? Yes, just one question. Is there a difference between having a permanent playground committee as a standing committee be created versus an ad hoc playground committee, which is what ours was set up as an ad hoc committee?
Again, I would be looking more for a formal transfer of custody, but certainly the more steps you are removed from that, the less likely it is that you're talking about something that was intended to be permanent.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the board? I will take questions from the audience. If you could step forward to the microphone, please.
It's all right, he doesn't bite. He's really a nice guy.
Can I?
Name and
should
address,
I-
please.
Should I speak as a resident or?
In whatever capacity you'd like to speak.
All right, so I'm Donna Forand. I live at 278 South Meadow Village. And I am the chairman of the Commission on Disability. And so currently, the playground out there, according to the Mass MAAB, has strict requirements for surfaces to and around the playground. And they do not consider wood chips or engineered wood fiber to be in compliant surface for accessible route for wheelchairs or other mobility devices. So I am doing my research, and I can't say 100%, but I feel like the playground out there might not be in compliant presently. And according to your 3 things about transfer to anyone, the CPA funds, and if the playground equipment is carried over, what happens if we can't carry over 100% of the equipment because it's not in compliant? That would be my question.
Through you, Mr. Chair?
Sure.
So I guess first off, the regulations of the Architectural Access Board apply to new construction or renovations. And so I'm not going to sit here today and say that the playground is not compliant with the regulations of the Architectural Access Board. If it was compliant when it was built, it remains compliant until new work is done.
That's correct.
Again, as to the CPA issue, I think it would turn more on, has the equipment outlived its useful life? And if the equipment can't be used because it no longer complies with regulations of the Access Board, then in my opinion, that would factor into the equation. And again, this is only whether or not you would have to put general funds back into the CPA, not whether or not you would be forever prevented from using the land as anything other than a playground.
Mr. Chair, could I add something to that? So I appreciate that, Greg, because I've talked to a number of playground companies, and they've said the same thing, that, well, we knew it was compliant when we built it, because not only did we want it to be compliant, but we were required to make it compliant. And that surfacing was indeed wheelchair accessible. But what we've been told is that if we were to relocate it, it would come out of compliance, because periodically those Americans with Disability Act regulations get updated, and things might need to be more compliant now than they were then. So I appreciate that. It is compliant. Each play structure has an ADA feature on it. The slides have an ADA accessible slide, et cetera. As I said, not only because we wanted to do it, but also because we were required to do it at that time.
Any other questions from the board on Article 97 or from the audience? Being none, I'll close this section of our public hearing. Mr. Koba, I would ask you to stay just 1 second and just mention why we're about to vote on the executive session and open session that we had the other day.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Last week, the board received correspondence from an attorney, Adam Bond, threatening litigation should the town proceed with building its police station on the land that currently houses the playground. I want to say that came in
5:48 on the 9th.
the night before the meeting. So the board had a regularly posted or a properly posted meeting scheduled. This threat of litigation came in the evening before that. And so a question arose as to whether the board could discuss that in executive and/or open session at its meeting. And I gave the opinion that yes, it could, because the requirements of the open meeting law are that anything the board discusses has to be on a posted agenda, posted at least 48 hours prior to the meeting, and the agenda has to contain all of the items that the chair reasonably anticipated would be discussed. And so the Attorney General has interpreted that if something arises inside of that 48-hour window that the chair could not have reasonably anticipated, it can still be discussed as long as you update the agenda at the earliest possible time and that you ratify any votes taken at a subsequent properly posted meeting. So the board did, at its meeting last week, vote to go into executive session, and the chair has the wording that was used for that, and did have a brief open session discussion of the matter. And so my recommendation is that the board ratify its decision to go into executive session, and that it just have a brief discussion of what occurred in open session after we came back out.
Does someone want to make a motion to ratify the decision to go into executive session?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make that motion.
Is there a second? Further discussion? Being none, those in favor?
Mr. Chair, I'm sorry. My recommendation would be that you read the actual
Read the
motion that
okay.
was made last week.
Can we take these separately, executive session, then do the open session?
Yes.
Okay. The motion, move to go into executive session pursuant to General Law, Chapter 30A, Sections 21A3, to discuss litigation strategy with respect to a threat of litigation concerning the town's police station project, which threat was received on April 10th, 2019 at 5:48 PM. If discussing the matter in open session may have a detrimental effect on the town's litigating position, and the chair so declares. So that was the issue, and so we have a motion and second to ratify the decision to do so. No further discussion. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Carrie, I'm going to recuse myself on this because I was not present at that meeting.
And then the second part is to ratify the fact that we went afterwards into open session and had discussion and possible vote regarding a police station project location and possibility of placing an article on the annual town meeting warrant to seek legislative approval to build a police station on the site of the existing playground in light of the recent threat of litigation. In point of fact, we ended up taking no action on that and just retired into, out of open session. Does someone want to make a motion to ratify that?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we ratify that we open session discussion and possible vote regarding the police station project location and possibility of placing an article on town meeting warrant to seek legislative approval to build the police station on site of the existing playground in light of the recent threat of litigation, and that we further discussed in open session that we would be taking no such action.
There a second?
That.
Further discussion? Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Once again, Carrie, I'm recusing myself from that vote.
Okay, that brings us to an end until we're going to start our regular meeting at 7 o'clock, so I will accept the
Chairman,
motion to
I
break
move that we
until
go ahead and
7.
take a break until 7 PM.
There a second?
Second.
Further discussion? Those in favor say aye. Those opposed? We are on break. Call the meeting back to order. Meeting of the Carver Board of Selectmen on Tuesday, April 16th, 2019. We already had our general opening. However, I did reserve for 7 o'clock Carver citizen participation. It's 10 minutes that we reserve at the start of every meeting for any citizen that might like to address the town. We do ask any citizen so addressing the town to try to keep it to about 3 minutes in order to give other citizens the opportunity to speak. Was there anyone this evening that would like to address the board? Yes. Please step forward and identify yourself.
Donna Marie Forand. I live at 278 South Meadow Village. And I just wanted to bring it to the attention, the planning board obviously is going to be discussing the marijuana dispensary facility in the town. I have a concern on the South Carver property on Route 58 or Tremont Street in South Carver. I go to church at the crossroads of the bridge, and we have a traffic problem on Sundays. And I would hope that the dispensary could be open after church hours to, so that we can go to and from church accordingly. And then also I want to bring the attention of the traffic on Route 58 during King Richard's Fair. So if we could get the hours adjusted for that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Was there anyone else that wanted to address the board this evening? There being none, we'll move on forward with the agenda. The next item is a Serpent appointment. Selectmen's representatives, Stephen Cole and Planning Board Representative Bruce Mackey, I guess, are willing to serve. What's the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we appoint both Stephen Cole for our rep and Bruce Mackey for the planning board rep.
Is there a second?
Well, I'll second that.
Further discussion? Being none, those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the ayes have it. Okay, annual town meeting warrant items. We now currently are going to have a presentation, a review and presentation of Article number 32 by the Council on Aging Board of Directors. If someone could step forward representing them. And again, please introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Colleen Preston, 9 Pipers Way. I'm the current chair of the Council on Aging Board of Directors. We have a bylaw change in here, a few minor issues. Nothing I don't think that will be controversial. A lot of it is just sort of housekeeping and changing a little bit the way we operate.
Can you walk us through the highlights
Yep,
of
I
what the
can.
changes are?
Yep. Part of it is, there's a state law that governs the Council on Aging, and this has been in our bylaws forever. It says Commission on Aging established under Chapter 6, Section 73 of the General Laws of Massachusetts. That has been obsolete since the 1970s sometime. So we're
Excuse me, I
changing.
think I said Article 32. It looks like it's Article 31. Is that
No.
correct?
No, it's 32.
32.
32?
Yep.
There's no 32.
31, I have 31.
31.
Oh, I was told 32 also.
It's page 30.
31
No,
on
it's 31, page 31.
Yeah, okay,
Okay.
sorry. So just
All right.
so we know.
So that general law has been obsolete since the 1970s. The current, we want to designate the current law, which is Chapter 40, Section 8B. So that's just a housekeeping change. Also, the name of the governing body there, the Commission on Aging, has changed since then to the Massachusetts Executive Office of Elder Affairs. So those two changes that just required because they're obsolete. The other one, we're changing the board to 5 members and 2 alternates. We have difficulty sometimes getting a quorum. We have difficulty recruiting new board members. And this way, we'll be able to get a quorum, but we'll still have 7 voices heard. And if we don't have 3 people showing up, we can use one of the alternates who will have voting powers and everything. So that's just, again, something to help us run more efficiently. The next one is the original bylaws had a president, first vice president, secretary, and treasurer. We'd like to change that to chair, vice chair, and secretary. No treasurer, no money, no treasurer. We don't need a treasurer. And the fourth one is to change, I've already mentioned that one, changing from the Commission of Aging to Executive Office of Elder Affairs. So that's it, and there's not really anything too controversial, I don't think.
And the rest of that we're reading here is reading as it currently is.
Some of it down at the bottom, in order to, this is wording just so that the board members will cycle correctly, changing from 7 to 5, and also just designating, there's one part in here when there's a vacancy on the board. The original bylaw stated that a vacancy would be filled by appointment from the town administrator. We want to change that to appointment by the town administrator after consulting with the board chair or vice chair in the absence of the chair, just to give us a little bit more input into the process and so that we know who's expressing interest, and we will not have the power to appoint, but we'll make our wishes known. We felt that would be a little fairer, give us a little bit more input into the process.
Okay.
If I may, Mr. Chair?
Well, let me get a motion
sorry.
out there, and then we'll go to discussion. Is there?
Mr. Chair, I move that we recommend Article 31 as written.
There a second?
I'll second that.
Discussion. Sarah?
Yes, I'm sorry, Ms. Preston, I just had a question. Where in the, of course, we have two different documents here. The one I have online, I don't see the place where it says that the town administrator will consult with the Council on Aging.
You mean in the original bylaws?
No, in the one you've just written up.
It's,
It's up at the top, Sarah, 4.4.2,
yeah,
second to last, or the last sentence, just above the strikeout.
Right here.
the town administrator in consultation with the most senior member of the council. That wording has been changed to the chair, or in the absence of the chair, the vice
I
chair.
see. I'm sorry, you had said it was down
Yeah.
at the end. I was looking at
Yeah,
the
I'm
end, and it
sorry.
wasn't there.
Yeah,
No,
yeah.
that's all right, thank you, appreciate it.
I've got notes all over the place here.
It's okay, I understand.
Other questions from the board?
I think change is good. I think, some of the old wording and the old ways of looking at things need to be updated regularly. So
We have
applaud you for
a
coming in.
pretty new board with a lot of new members, and so we're really trying to be engaged and keep the process moving forward.
It's quite obvious, yeah.
Yeah, it's a good board.
Good.
I think we'll be effective, we hope.
Thanks for updating us.
Any other questions? Being none, those in favor of recommending Article 31 to town meeting, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. I should take this opportunity to mention, since I'm chair of the Friends of the Carver Council on Aging, which is basically the fundraising arm of the Council on Aging, that we are sponsoring on August 4th a golf tournament
Yes.
with the Carver Lions, in cooperation with Carver Lions. Half the monies earned will be going to the Friends of the Carver Council on Aging to help sponsor trips, upgrades, whatever the council needs. So that, keep that in mind. We're looking for foursomes, we're looking for corporate sponsorships, we're looking
Yeah.
for whole
Yeah,
sponsorships.
Yeah,
And,
Carol told us about that, and we're going to try to promote it wherever we can, and thank you for that.
so I
Maybe
just-
we do need a treasurer, huh?
Well, no, that's
Hopefully you
what
need
the
one.
Friends, that the Friends handle the money, and then you ask us for the money and we
All
give
right,
it to you,
yeah.
so. So anyway, it's a gratuitous, but I thought I should take the opportunity to get because we need players out there.
Chairman's choice.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate
thank
you
you.
being in tonight.
Thank you.
All right, at the last meeting, I brought up the idea that we should have a discussion to reconsider the vote that was taken at the Board of Selectmen meeting on December 4th, 2018, in which the original motion to accept the advice of or the recommendation of the Police Station Advisory Building Committee, that the motion read to accept the Police Station Advisory Building Committee's unanimous recommendation and to designate the area north of the library as the future home of the new Carver Police Station. To further direct the Police Station Advisory Building Committee to work in collaboration with the Recreation Committee to secure a portion of the $900,000 of CPC funds available with support of the CPC committee or at April town meeting to redevelop a recreation complex as part of the proposed town hall master plan. Further, no relocation or demolition shall occur to the existing playground until necessary funds are secured for its replacement as further outlined. And so I guess I'll just speak to the issue because I brought it up in the first place. I feel that modifier at the end, further, no relocation or demolition shall occur to the existing playground until necessary funds are secured for its replacement as further outlined, was no longer necessary as part of the Selectmen's motion, since on the advice of the Police Station Building Committee, they asked us to leave this decision on the location of the police station in the hands of town meeting. Article 2 at the town meeting on Monday night will specifically have an up or down vote as to whether the police station should be located where the current playground is. And then in Article 4, town meeting will have the opportunity to decide if they would like to build a new playground out by where the ball fields are. I bumped into a few people that were a little confused by our position, and I believe that for the sake of clarity and for town meeting, that we should revote striking that last sentence.
Mr. Chairman, are we having the discussion before anybody making a motion?
Well, okay, I guess, you're right, I probably should
I
have
wanna know
followed
before
procedure.
when I can talk.
Does someone want to make a motion, motion relative to this article? I mean, relative to this recommendation.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second that for the purpose of discussion only.
Okay. All right, Mr. Dunham.
I agree we need to talk about it, but I've been thinking about it since when we first decided to bring this up. And to me, if Article 2 passes or fails, then it's done anyway. They go back to the drawing board. But if Article 2 passes and Article 4, Part A fails, which that's the money devoted, that's the vote to devote money to the playground itself, and that will kind of put a kink in things. However, when we originally did this, we promised the residents of Carver that we'd make sure it had funding before anything would touch the old playground. And to me, if we were to go ahead and strike that, then, and Article 4A fails, we're kind of slapping everybody that voted for that in the face. We're taking away their vote. If, let's say, we strike that.
Excuse me, whose vote? Slapping who?
Those who are against Article 4A, and if that passes, and then we've already taken this out, it's like that vote doesn't matter, because we could still go ahead and take down the playground without the necessary funding. You follow?
Town meeting made that decision.
Right, but the thing is, if we take out further no relocation or demolition shall occur, then we can still go ahead, for the police station that passed in Article 2, you could still go ahead and start taking down that PlayStation.
I understand what you're saying, but I guess in my mind, it's not us anymore. Town meeting is deciding, town meeting would then be making the statement, we want a new police station, we don't want a new playground, because if we do it the way you're suggesting, and this is my opinion, then town meeting says we want the police station to go where the playground is, we don't want to build a new playground out by the ball fields, but if we leave this in, then basically we don't get a new police station.
Unfortunately, that's true.
But town meeting has spoken and said they don't want a new playground. So you're basically overriding the will of town meeting.
No, we're overriding, if we take it out, we're overriding the will of all, I'm not anticipating that if 2 passes, that 4A is not going to pass. However, if it doesn't,
Then you're condemning the police station to never get built.
No.
but don't they have that right
Not
to
in that
make that
location.
vote?
It's quite different, Mr. Chair, to say that a no on Article 2 means a police station will never get
It
built.
won't get built where the playground
Well,
is.
let's be clear. A no vote on Article 2 is not against the police station, it's against locating it
I understand
on the
that.
playground. Well, that's not what you said, though. We really have to be
No
clear.
vote on Article 2 means the police station does not get built where the playground is.
Correct.
And my point is that town meeting is now making the decision. Town meeting is saying, we want the new police station, we don't want the new playground. And I think if you leave this wording in there, then you essentially have condemned the police station to not getting built on that location.
So basically, but you're telling the people that wanted to vote for it, and maybe had enough people to vote against it, taking away their vote then?
Yeah.
Because they can say, no, we're not going to give you the money, and yet you're saying we're going to build a police station anyway.
Because it's instead of instead of the 5 of us, it's all of town meeting. Sarah's flyers say town meeting has the final vote. You're saying we should have the final vote.
No, I'm saying the fact that we created that phrase, I think, binds us to whatever that vote is on Article 4A, whether we like it or not.
Then you're saying if
just
Article
like
2 passes and Article 4 fails, that is also as if Article 2 failed.
That would be the effect.
Well, we're gonna have to agree to disagree, I guess.
Or we'd have to scramble to come up with some other way to fund the playground.
Well,
But by the same token, to me, if we go ahead and 2 passes, 4 passes, and then somewhere down the road, the whole process gets stopped, that to me is a slap in the face of everybody who voted for the police station to go where the committee recommended it to.
Mr. Townsend?
Mr. Chairman, just, I guess my thoughts on this are, back when we first included this wording, there were a lot of people in town, there were a lot of people that reached out to me that were distrustful of the process, and they thought there was a chance that we would build the police station where the playground was, but not fund a new playground. And I think this wording was put in there, as I recall, to dispel those thoughts. In fact, I probably would not have voted for the original motion if this wording was not in there. But now, we've given town meeting an opportunity to vote on funding for the new playground. Everything's on town meeting warrant. This, originally, it was up to the playground, the police station building committee. It was not going to be on town meeting warrant. Now it is. So town meeting has an opportunity to vote on everything. And I think we should follow the will of town meeting. I think we should remove this language, and I think we should allow town meeting to vote on Article 2, on the different sections of Article 4, and follow the will in town meeting. That's my thoughts.
Anything from this side?
Yes. I was waiting for you to recognize me.
Ms. Hewens?
Thank you. So I actually agree with Alan on this. I think that it was a promise made to the people, and even though we're asking town meeting to vote, I think we should keep our promises. That's my feeling. And I also would like to ask that we not make this personal. You don't actually know that any flyers that are out there are Sarah's flyers, Mr. Chair?
I'm sorry, I had that reported to me that you handed it to them, so my error. Mr.
Doesn't
Robertson?
necessarily make them mine.
I believe this wording should stay in, and the reason I do is because I was the one that made the motion from the Police Station Advisory Board Committee, and I made that promise to many people in town, and I would like to be able to keep my promise, as I always have done. So I would vote to have that left in.
All right, I'll just reiterate my point that, to me, and I should point out just that both for the December 4th meeting and the January 28th meeting, I stated on both those occasions that if we had not planned on building another playground, I would still vote to have the police station replace the playground. While I voted for the motion as worded, I made it clear that without that wording, I would have voted for it if it was all being left to the selectmen. I still say it makes a huge difference that town meeting is now making the vote, and that we are essentially defying the will of town meeting by saying we will not move forward with the police station on the playground, even if that's what town meeting indicates it wants to do. So, just a question of interpretation.
That's not what it says at all, Mr. Chair.
I'm
There's
saying
nothing
that's
in
my
there that's-
interpretation.
Well, there's nothing in there that says we won't move forward with the police station.
I'm sorry, citing the police station on where the playground is.
It doesn't, that's not what the sentence says, but
It says, "No relocation or demolition shall occur to the existing playground until necessary funds are secured for its replacement as further outlined."
correct.
Okay, so,
Doesn't say anything about a police station.
well, that's what the rest of the article is referring to.
Okay. But you just said that line had something.
I'm saying the implication of that line is that the original intent was that if we were not able to secure funds, if the town did not secure funds to build a new playground, that we would not move forward with placing the new police station where the playground is. My argument is that by turning this over to town meeting to vote A, where should the police station be located, up or down, at the site of the playground or not, and then the same town meeting has the ability to decide, yes, we have just decided we want to put the police station where the playground is, and now we have the opportunity to fund a new playground out by the ball fields, and if they say no to that, that is the will of town meeting, and I believe that by leaving this wording in, we are circumventing the will of town meeting. My opinion. Call for the vote.
You want to take any comments?
No.
Peter Gallo?
No. All those in favor of striking the last line further, no relocation or demolition shall occur to the existing playground until necessary funds are secured for its replacement as further outlined, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
No.
No.
Aye.
It fails. All right, we now move to vote on the remaining town meeting warrant articles. We've already voted on 31. We move to Article 16. Which was the transfer of tax title properties. Finance Committee took no action on this. Were we waiting on anything specific? Does anyone remember on taking action on this?
No, I don't remember.
Don't recall either.
Well, I guess in the absence of clarity, perhaps taking no action would be our position. Well, what's the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we take recommend no action.
Second.
Further discussion? Being none, those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. We go to Article 18, private hauler garbage disposal. And I believe this is really more or less a non-binding opinion as to whether the town, what it states is, to see if the town will vote to adopt the following non-binding resolution. Should the town explore issuing an RFP in order to have one private hauler to manage in the town under one contract and require an additional fee to the tax bill, rather than have households pay directly to the garbage hauler of their choice or take any other action relative thereto? My understanding of this is that, well, actually, let's do a motion in a second first. Someone want to make a motion?
I'll make that motion.
There a second?
For conversation only.
All right, and Dave, I know this is your article, or that you've been involved in creating it, but my understanding is this is not saying that we are going to a one-payer system.
Correct.
This is simply saying, should we even bother exploring going to a one-payer system? And what would, let's say that the determination was yes, then you have to come back to town meeting again, or what is the process?
I assume that we'd go get a quote for town pickup and then bring that back. Our contract with Covanta ends at the end of 2020, so we still have time in 2019 to look for options as to what we're going to do. We'd have to come back in 2020 with our findings for the cost of going forward.
Okay, so this does not
This doesn't bind
commit
us.
us to
That's-
one
I think
or the
that's what
other.
it says, yeah.
Okay.
Non-binding resolution.
Mr. Chairman, I understand the non-binding part, but my question becomes, in your preliminary thinking off the top of your head, if the town decides to go that route, is that something that's going to be added to the tax base?
Absolutely.
Okay.
But let's be, I want to be clear about that.
Yeah.
So that everybody, that's why we're asking the town for direction here. Because the price of household garbage, household trash to be picked up is going up after 2020. What it's going up to, nobody knows. Plymouth charges $165 a year plus bags. Other towns are similar in nature. Some are $200. Ours is going up as well. It's going to be with the same amount. So what we're asking for from the town is direction. Do we want to keep doing what we're doing and get our individual trash pickup from the town haulers that we have, and or bring our trash to the transfer stations at whatever cost that's going to be? Or do you want us to look at a town-wide pickup? All three options are definitely going to go up in cost to the taxpayers. It's just, how do you want us to proceed? And we're giving the town the choice.
But just to be clear, they're not making the decision at this town meeting.
No.
You're simply looking for some direction as to how to proceed.
As good government should go. Ask the taxpayers what they want us to do, and we'll go do it.
Yeah, I mean, just personally, I'm almost of a mind that we could have done this without even going to town meeting. You're sort of taking a temperature.
No, I've learned a lot in the last, about asking town people things, and so I think the more that we're transparent, the more that we're out and what we're doing. We could have done it privately, but I've learned it's always best to ask for direction recently, so that's why we're doing this.
Ms. Hewens?
Yeah, you weren't sure why we tabled it, and I just found the minutes, and it says,
You're talking about private haul of garbage disposal?
Article 18, wording needs to be clarified. This is to recommend that the town be in charge of issuing an RFP to find the best value hauler for managing private household garbage. This is an opportunity for residents to find out if this would be more cost-effective to them, and the payment would be added onto their quarterly tax bill.
Yep.
That's all it says.
Any further discussion? Being none, those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed?
Opposed?
2 opposed? All right.
I'm sorry, Ron, so it was 3-2-0?
3-2.
3-2, okay.
We go to Article 26, which are the wetlands bylaw changes. Did we have anyone that could speak to that? And could they step forward and identify themselves? And then answer the questions that we had last time.
All right, I can do that, too. Savory Moore, 12 South Main Street, a member of the Conservation Commission. In conversations with the town council, and I believe with the town administrator and town council, it was decided to basically put the entire bylaw as an addendum, addendum N, to get it out of the main part of the warrant. But to answer the questions that were raised the last time I was here 2 weeks ago, in section 9.2.1.2, and most of these suggestions were per Ms. Hewens, we added the words "prevention of" to the last bullet, which stated prevention of invasive species. The next thing was there was the agriculture exemption, and town council moved that from where it had originally been to the exceptions section of the bylaws, which is now 9.2.1.4 parentheses 5. And Ms. Hewens had suggested that we put it in as Mass General Law 10.04. Council put it in as 10.00 and included et seq, which means includes everything under 10.0. And that was their language.
Savory, can I ask a question? So it's not a law, it's the regulations, and it's 310 CMR?
Right,
And he's
yeah.
right, 10.00, because that would include all of them. I
Right.
was talking about ag exemptions in particular, because they're 10.04.
Right, and I talked to them about that, and he felt that by putting in et seq, that include the 10.04 in the CMR.
And he did cite the 310 CMR.
Yes, that's in
Thank you.
there correctly. Another question was raised about the Cornell Atlas precipitation extremes being put in guidelines for site planning. I spoke to our conservation agent, Brooke, regarding that, and she said that is already included in the stormwater management plan, which is in another section of the bylaws, which is 9.2.3.2/4. So she didn't feel it was necessary to put it in the second section.
So if I may interrupt you, so that's in section 9.2.3.2/4.
/4.
So it's actually already there.
Not the wording, but there is a stormwater management, and Brooke was under the impression that would cover everything that needed to be done regarding precipitation extremes.
Well, if the Cornell Atlas of precipitation extremes isn't named, then they can use anything to calculate runoff.
Well, it hasn't been named before. It was not,
Well, it must have been taken out because it's been in there for quite a while.
Well, I looked back 2 or 3 years in the bylaws, and it hasn't been there. So I don't know when it was there, or,
It was there prior to 2014.
okay, well. All I'm saying is that I spoke to Brooke about it, and she felt that it was not necessary to have it in there because it was in, there are methods to calculate stormwater runoff under the site plan itself.
Yeah, my concern is those technical papers that they're referencing in there, those are out of date. Those are like 1940s papers. And that's why we had put in there the Cornell Atlas of Precipitation Extremes. Planning Board uses that too.
Okay.
Because things are different now. And
Well, I'm sorry that I can't address that more clearly.
okay.
I looked back for 2 or 3 years, and since I've been on the Conservation Commission, though, that really hasn't changed. And Brooke didn't feel that it was necessary. She felt that the stormwater management that's in there now is strong enough. All right, does that, I think that was all the changes that were asked for. I do want to say that the informational summary has been streamlined by K&P Law, and it addresses the reasons for the agricultural exemptions being mentioned, which is basically just so that that people who have 61A property and need to have an agricultural exemption do come and let us know if they're planning on doing work, so that we can be forewarned and ward off any and everyone who calls.
May I ask one more question about that?
Yes.
I just wanted to say that the Chapter 61A is tax protection. It's a statute that if the landowner writes the letter proving that they can be in that category, then they get that tax protection. But the agricultural exemptions are run with the land. So whether or not if someone can own, 4-acre farm, I think to be in Chapter 61A, you have to own 5 or more acres. It might have gone down to 2. I think it did go down to 2. But in other words, Chapter 61A doesn't, you can still claim agricultural exemptions under 310 CMR 10.04 without your land being in chapter land. That's what I'm trying to point out.
Okay.
So I'm just trying to make sure those aren't confused. Just mentioning chapter land in there worries me because, not everyone is in chapter land.
All right. This is what Town Council came up with. This bylaw shall not apply to the normal maintenance or improvement of land in agricultural use as set forth in Mass General Law 131/40 and 310 CMR 10.0 et seq. Provided that the commission shall be notified prior to the commencement of the work or as soon as possible after the commencement of the work if such notice cannot be practically given.
Okay.
And that's basically all it says.
That sounds good. Yeah.
All right?
Okay.
And I think that addresses all the questions that this board had when I was here 2 weeks ago. Is that-
You've got your elevator speech, how to
Yeah.
get that down in 2 minutes,
Yeah,
so that everyone has that clearly?
yeah.
All right?
Yeah, so the-
Mr. Chairman, also,
Yes.
just so people that are watching understand, there are also fee schedules now in it?
Yes, yes. but
Because
we-
those are bold, so.
Yes, but I believe we had discussed that last time I was here. I was just going over the changes that had been asked of the commission.
Oh, okay.
From last week. I mean, there are other
Just
changes
wanted to
there.
clarify.
There are changes in some of the definitions, adding the words hardship to the variance. We did add vista pruning, even though it's a state law. We did add it to the Carver bylaws, so it's easily findable, but that was something that was there last time I spoke. So,
Okay.
And just one last thing, to be clear, the fee schedule, there's always been a fee schedule in the bylaw, so these are just revised
revised.
fees. Okay.
Yes.
All right, and of course, I went out of order again. I should have had a motion in a second before all this discussion. So I will now ask for a motion on Article 26.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Further discussion?
Recommend.
Being none, those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you very much. We
Thank you.
appreciate your perseverance on this
I'm sorry,
article.
Mr. Chair, I have to vote no because of that the precipitation extremes atlas being left out. I think it's really crucial.
Okay.
I have no problem with the rest of it.
All right. That is the last of the remaining warrant articles. Just a note that the article number 1 relates to a series of proposed clarifications, couple of changes, but primarily clarifications on how town meeting is run. And since the moderator sponsored many, if not most, of those suggestions or clarifications, he would like to recuse himself from being moderator at that time so that he can speak to the issues. And so we will be appointing, designating someone to be deputy moderator at town meeting just for Article 1. And then Mr. Clancy will resume his duties as moderator afterwards. So just a point of notice. The town administrator update is mercifully brief this evening.
Mr. Chair, are we going to do that now, or are we going to
No,
do that at town meeting?
that would happen at town meeting. Has to go to town meeting, might have their own, their own nominees. So it's not in our purview to make that appointment.
Okay.
Board of Selectmen updates. We'll start with Mr. Robertson.
I have nothing to add, just vote, 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 vote. Everybody, it's your time to speak up.
All right, Ms. Hewens?
Yes, I will agree with that, except I'm going to point out that the time to vote is Monday night, April 22nd, at 6:30 p.m. at the Carver Middle High School auditorium. And this is one of the few times that people's votes actually matter. So we'll see you there.
Do you mean town meeting in general or just this particular town meeting?
No, town meeting in general.
You said this was one of those few times, so I was joking. Just, it was
No, I
it was
think-
my sense of humor.
Oh, I see, well.
Yeah.
I think there's been a kind of a general misunderstanding that sometimes by folks who don't always have a chance to be as engaged as they might like to be, that when they come to, say, a selectmen's meeting, what they say sometimes is it's ignored or it's listened to, but they're not the ones that get to vote. That's the distinction I'm making. At annual town meeting, they actually get to vote.
Correct. As they have since 1790.
That's right.
Mr. Townsend.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to echo the words of my colleagues. Please come out and vote at town meeting and at our annual election. This is your voice. Don't let it be silenced. Thank you.
Mr. Dunham.
As my previous colleagues have stated, vote, vote, vote. Also, I had the pleasure this past weekend of attending 2 different functions. First was Saturday at the new fire station, where the latest batch of recruits, there were 5 recruits that went through their final exam on Saturday, and they had a graduation ceremony to them. So, the town's getting 5 new great firefighters. So that was very impressive to go to see how well that's run. And then going to the Easter egg hunt that was put on by the Recreation Committee. That was truly an outstanding job the Recreation Committee did. They put out 4,000 eggs, and son of a gun, every one of them, I think, got found. All the kids there had big smiles on their faces. The parents watching their kids go about finding the eggs, they all had smiles, and it was a great family event on Sunday that the Rec Committee put on. So I just wanted to give kudos to them.
Excellent. The only thing I'll add, in addition to voting at town meeting Monday night, is that the town election is the following Saturday, the 29th, I believe it is. And
27th.
27th, thank you. Alan shook his head yes.
Because I didn't know.
Saturday,
I'm just agreeing with you.
Saturday, the 27th, I believe it's 8 to 6. So please turn out and remember to vote for the town elections as well. And with that, we'll move on to approval of the Town of Carver cyber use policy.
What is that?
That leads me to believe we may be tabling this issue when one of the members asks what that is.
Mr. Chairman, I move we table that because I'm
I'll
have a funny
second that.
feeling the town administrator needs to do a
I
little
got a motion and a
explaining.
second to table the Town of Carver cyber use policy. Further discussion? There being none? Those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, the ayes have it. Okay, the minutes of March 19th, what's the pleasure of the board?
Move we approve.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Further discussion?
I'm sorry, I have to admit, I have not looked at this. Can we put off that approval?
Would that also apply to April 2nd and April 8th?
I don't know why I didn't see this.
We can put it off.
Is Ms. Hewens
Doesn't
making
hurt
a
it.
motion to table the minutes for tonight?
Yes, I am.
Is there a second?
That is my motion.
Further discussion? Those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Those
Aye.
opposed?
Thank you.
All right, we have a request for a fishing tournament from Our Lady of Lourdes. It's in from Charles Armanetti. And it is for July 20th, rain date of July 27th of this year, from 5:30 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. It's a local children's fishing contest, all Carver youth, ages 4 to 10, no charge. It's a nonprofit event, no boats or trailers used, expecting about 40 people, and they are asking, since it's a nonprofit event, that we waive the fee.
Mr. Chairman, I move we approve the fishing tournament request and waive the fee.
Second.
Further discussion? Being none, those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the ayes have it. Okay, our annual town meeting is Monday, April 22nd at 6:30. And then we'll have our usual meetings in May, June, July, I guess just one in August, so nothing changes much after that. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
I will, before going to discussion, I will just point out that our town administrator, Milanowski, is severely under the weather, along with having an eye infection, and that's why he's not here this evening. So we'll wish him well. Those in favor of adjournment, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the ayes have it. Thank you.